Initiating moisture.
Welcome to the Moist Meter. Today we're taking a look at the new Saints Row, and I'm just going to be honest, I'm coming to you right now as a failure. I was not able to complete the new Saints Row game. It's like the one chip challenge, but instead of spice, it's just dog shit game that just makes people tap out from pain. It's so bad. It's very rare that a game is so unbelievably bland, boring, and awful that I don't finish it. Usually I can push through it, and I usually really enjoy bad games because they can be laughably bad. And make no mistake, Saints Row starts out laughably bad, but by hour 4, where it's the same missions every single time with no changes except the location, it just becomes so mind-numbing and miserable. Every single mission in this game plays out exactly the same. You're either going to be on a turret, just shooting waves of enemies on a turret, in a car, shooting waves of cars that chase you, riding on top of a car, shooting waves of cars that chase you, just all these static on-rail sections, or you're going to be standing in a location defending someone as waves of enemies come at you, or occasionally you'll storm a location, you'll shoot through like 2 waves of enemies, and then you go into a turret section or a chase section where you're just shooting cars. It's so miserable. 10 hours of non-stop unfun anguish. And to be honest, it'd be fine and excusable if the gameplay was good, but it is not. And I don't know what the other reviewers are seeing in the gameplay that's giving them high scores. I don't know what's happening, if they've even played the game or if they played it with their eyes closed. I don't get it. The gameplay is objectively dated. It is not good. It is bland gameplay, and I felt like I was playing a 2006 title. If this game came out over a decade ago, it'd be totally passable. But it didn't. It came out in 2022, and it is a massive step down from even Saints Row 3. The gameplay is trash. It is the most uninspired, unfun, cookie-cutter snooze fest. Every fight plays out the same way. You don't have like powers or anything anymore. You have abilities that you use, but the abilities are super boring. You're basically just a guy with all the powers of a teenage boy. You can throw a grenade, you can throw a smoke bomb down, you can throw a landmine, and a couple of the abilities are kind of fun, like you can put a grenade on someone's belt and throw them and they explode. That's the only enjoyable one. The fire punch, which I thought would be cool, was super lame and underwhelming. Just overall, the gameplay is super stinky, inexcusably so. It is objectively, this isn't like an opinion, it is dated. It doesn't do anything that you would expect from a modern AAA title. It goes backwards. It is a giant step back from Saints Row like 8 years ago. Like it blows my mind that anyone's giving it a pass. I understand liking other aspects of the game, which I'll get into in a minute, but the gameplay itself is something that can't just be overlooked. It is just not good. The driving is terrible, as you'd expect. Saints Row's always had bad driving. I'll just say it like it is. I'll hit you with the cold water. The driving in Saints Row's never been great, and it's just as bad here, so don't expect any improvements on that front. But again, the main blemish is just how bad the gunplay is, and don't even bother trying melee because you're just going to want to throw yourself down the stairs in boredom. The melee, my god, I don't even know where to begin. I don't even know why they bothered to put it in here when you only have 2 moves for everything. But regardless, the gameplay is just not fun. And the missions being so formulaic where you know what's going to happen every single mission is also not helping. So now moving on from the gameplay, let's talk about what I'm sure all of you are hearing, which is the writing. Yes, the writing is as bad as you've seen in the Twitter clips or have read about from other reviewers. The writing is so fucking trash, but it's almost so shitty that it's good. It's almost to the Room level of how awful the dialogue is. Like, I'm sure you've seen in the intro cutscene, the main character has like a bit of a hissy fit in the car, and depending on what voice you pick, they'll say some stupid shit such as crap, crappity, crap, crappin', motherfucking, motherfuck, crappin', motherfuck, fuck, motherfucking crap. And that dialogue is for every character ever. Every character is exactly the same. They all speak like an angsty child going through a phase. It's like this script was written by an AI that was forced to only study Twitter. It is awful. It is abominable. It should be downright criminal how bad the writing is often in this game. It doesn't stop. It is unrelenting cringe. And like I said, I love bad games. I always do find enjoyment in bad games, and I did find that here in the beginning with Saints Row, but it just becomes too much, right? It never stops being embarrassing, and at a certain point, you can't help but hate it. And my heart breaks for the voice actors because they had to read this script and do their best to try and save it with their performance. And I don't think the voice acting's bad. I don't think anyone did like a terrible job with their characters. I really think it is all just the direction and the writing, like the actual script here and how they were instructed to deliver the lines. It's so bad. And the story is of course bad by extension. You're gonna hate every character unless you're just laughing at them, and the story isn't good either. Oh my lord, it's a complete fucking disaster from a narrative and character perspective. It also doesn't help that the open world in Saints Row is the emptiest in all of AAA gaming. I can't think of a more dead open world than this game. It makes Ubisoft's open worlds look alive. Like Watch Dogs Legions somehow felt more alive than this fucking game. You'll drive around from point A to point B and see nothing. You'll see a couple other cars on the road, but the AI is always malfunctioning, so sometimes they might be driving up a mountain for no reason or hitting each other or killing themselves, like driving into rivers and shit. But aside from like the goofy spectacle of bad AI, there's nothing in the world. I don't even know why they bothered to make it open world in this case. They could have just done a linear Saints Row and it would have at least been better because it would have saved time driving from point A to point B. That'll take like 10 real world minutes sometimes. So there's a lot I don't like about the game, so you're probably wondering, is there anything I do like? And the answer is no. There's really almost nothing in this game that I had fun with, other than the wingsuit and a couple of silly missions. I always appreciate the silliness of games and a game that can embrace it, and Saints Row obviously tries. But because the gameplay is so bad and every mission plays out exactly the same, it's hard to enjoy the silliness because it's immediately bogged down by waves of enemies that become a chore to just chop through. Some of them are just bullet sponges, some of them die in one hit, but either way there's always hordes and hordes of enemies and it's not fun to fight them. But in the few minutes of fun before the enemies show up, where the characters are doing something like going to get a special toy from a burger place or role play or LARPing around the area talking about like the house of tapeworms and shit, like I appreciate the charm there. And there are very clear moments that are like a direct homage or paying tribute to other properties, which I of course appreciate. But again, then the enemies show up as they always do with just waves of like static turret shooting, and it sucks. And you're immediately taken out and you go back to just being miserable. But I do like the wingsuit. I did like some of like the actual mission ideas, like LARPing for example, but aside from that, I really do struggle to find things I like, except for cutscenes. I think when they're doing main mission cutscenes, those work pretty well. Visually, the game's not great. I mean, you can look at this game and immediately see that it's not the most impressive. It does look like it belongs on the Xbox 360, but I'm not like a big graphics stickler. I think direction trumps graphical fidelity 100% of the time. And there are a few missions where I appreciated where they were going with the direction, doing crazy shit like, you know, ramping a car off of a rock, landing on a sign, and using that sign to, you know, crush cop cars. You know, that's cool. Those cutscenes are cool. But then again, you get back to the mission, and it's a buggy mess of gameplay. That's something I haven't even mentioned yet, the bugs. This game is full of glitches, so much so that it makes Cyberpunk look like it was polished on release. There are so many fucking bugs in this game, it is wild. It is head-spinning. But, you know, that's not even the biggest issue I have with it. It's, again, just how boring the fucking gameplay is. Anyway, plugging Saints Row into the moist meter, I'm going to have to give this like a 25%. It's rough. It's so rough. I don't see why anyone would choose to play it past 2 hours, you know, while you can still get a refund. It doesn't change. Within that 2 hours, you can pretty much experience everything the game has to offer. You encounter every faction, which they're all pretty much the same. They don't do anything special. You've encountered the only main ability that you'll have fun with, which is the grenade and belt and throwing them. And the gunplay never evolves, nothing changes, and every mission has the same objectives throughout the entire game. So I think within 2 hours, you know exactly how the rest of the game is going to go from a gameplay perspective. It's just going to be a matter of, do you like the writing? Is this your taste? And I think for the majority of people, it's going to be a resounding no there. Even people that'll like it in the beginning, it just becomes too much because they never let off the gas. The writing is just so aggressively bad that I think even if you enjoy it in the beginning, you'll be turned off by the end. Anyway, that's about it. See ya.